Hey, it's about 10 o'clock, Friday, May 8th. Um, just got out of the hot tub, um, jacuzzi. I do a lot of praying and thinking and just pondering while I'm out there. Sometimes sit out there for an hour and sing. And an old friend was on my heart, and his family and his sisters and his mom and dad. And he's a warrior, a former Marine, a high patrol officer, in a battle for his life right now. And I just kept going to the passage in the Bible, in the Gospels. It actually holds the shortest verse in the Bible, where it says Jesus wept. And it's about the story of Lazarus, but it's really about the story of Jesus weeping, or the story of Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha. Um, and I'm thinking about, why would Jesus weep? Um, he was in another town, and someone came to him and said, "Hey, your friend Lazarus is sick. You need to go heal him." And Jesus waited. And then he finally shows up, and Lazarus has been dead and in the ground in the grave for 4 days. And Lazarus' sisters were obviously glad that he was there, but also sad that he hadn't come earlier and hadn't healed Lazarus, his friend. And it's the story where Jesus says to them, "I am the resurrection and the life. If you believe in me, you will live though you die." And one of Lazarus' sisters says, "Yeah, I know, the resurrection of the dead at the end." And but during that time, it says these two little words: Jesus wept. And here's a man that is both fully man and yet also fully divine, fully God. And he had said that he and the Father are one to the Jewish religious leaders, and they picked up stones to stone him for blasphemy, for claiming that he was God. He told them, "Before Abraham was, I am," which is a reference to God in the Old Testament. And yet he weeps, and he knows eternity. He knows heaven. He knows what happens after you die. He knows, as the Apostle Paul would later say, to live is Christ and to die is gain. That death, for those that believe, is ultimately better. That it's a greater existence. That it's an eternal existence. It's in glory. And so bringing Lazarus back to life wasn't any good, really, for Lazarus. It was actually a loss, because he's going to come back from paradise, as Jesus said on the cross to the thief, "Today you will be with me in paradise." So Lazarus is in paradise, and Jesus brings him back. Why? Not for Lazarus' good, but because of the compassion and the empathy and the sympathy and the love that he had for Lazarus and his sisters, for the two women that his heart broke for their mourning, for their loss. It's similar to when Jesus looked down on the city of Jerusalem, and he cried out and he wept over the people there. And I think Jesus understands our pain, what we go through in times of loss and difficulty, whether it's loss of a loved one, divorce, brokenness, heartache, hurt, sickness, coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, shelter at home. That he can empathize with us, and that he can bring us peace in the midst of a storm. I mean, he was on a boat. It was a great storm, and everyone's freaking out, and he got up and said, "Cease, be still." The waves stopped, and the wind died. He held control and power over the winds and the waves and over death. And I believe that after dying on the cross, he rose again, and he's alive today. And that his spirit is left and lives with us and brings us that peace in the midst of our storms. Brings us the calm. That when we are out there in the dark, he walks on the water towards us. When we are lonely and feel neglected, he meets us at the well. when we have been a prodigal and abandoned the Father, he runs out to greet us when we return. That he weeps with our losses, rejoices with our joy. He eats and dines with dirty hands with the sinners, the broken, the weak, the humble. The Bible says that God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. And it's hard to humble yourself. It really is. It's hard to have self-control. It's hard to understand and fathom what's good in death, what's good in fighting for your life. How is cancer? Oh, Lord, what? I don't understand it. And my heart hurts. My mom that went through 21 major surgeries and brain tumor and wasn't supposed to live and all of these things, and she's a miracle. And yet others don't live through that. You raised Lazarus from the dead, but others you don't. Pretty much everyone else dies. Such sadness.